Welcome back to FTK. I'm here with Ivy today, and Ivy is a new friend of mine.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't even think I follow you on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, please follow me on
But-
Instagram. I will follow you back so fast.
But after this, we'll be Instagram. We'll be internet official friends.
Amen.
As well as in-person friendship. I love that the Instagram is what signifies true friendship.
Yeah. Just like, I feel like it's, I don't know, like you care enough to see about what I'm doing online, you know?
Exactly. Okay. After this. Anyways, I'm here with Ivy. I'm so excited for you guys to hear her story. She's shared a little bit with me and how God has seen her in her circumstances and how he has used her, and just the life that he has brought you is so incredible. So I think that's going to be so encouraging for everyone to hear. So Ivy, we'll just jump right in it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Take it away.
I don't even know where to start. I feel like there's so much.
Right? I know. How do you summarize, how old are you? 20 something years?
I'm 22 years old.
How do you summarize 22 years in 45 minutes?
I actually don't, I feel like I should be 40. With the amount of like life that I've lived, I feel like I'm actually 40 on the inside, and 20 is just like God being nice to me.
I speak youth over you.
Amen. Oh my gosh. Love it.
Well, tell me about how far back should we go?
I feel like we just have to go back to the beginning. I
Okay.
feel like that just makes the most sense
Take us there.
starting in my childhood.
Okay.
So I always grew up in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Lived by the ocean. Loved it. It was great. I grew up with I think it was like my 5 siblings and my mom and my dad. We all lived together, and I always thought like I lived a very normal life, but until like I hit elementary age.
Okay.
And like I met other kids, and then we started talking, and like things they would say, I was like, why isn't that happening in my house?
Oh.
Like, what do you mean? So as I got older, I kind of realized the situation I was in was not like a very good situation. It was a very emotionally abusive house and a physically abusive house. So my dad had really bad anger issues, and my mom was battling something called Huntington's disease that she didn't really know she was battling at the point.
Like she hadn't been officially diagnosed.
Yeah, she
yet.
hadn't been diagnosed at this point, but her dad passed away from it. So I think she kind of knew that it was coming, but she was still like scared of getting that diagnosis.
Yeah.
So she put it off for a really, really long time, and everything got reflected back onto us as the kids. Like there would be times where we weren't allowed to eat because we did the wrong thing, or having to like sit on the stairs for hours and think about what you've done, even though you weren't quite sure what you've done.
Yeah.
And I thought all this was like, I just thought that was the normal because I was so young.
Yeah.
And then I was the youngest kid for the longest time. And then when I was 8, my parents had another kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So around the same time that she was born, my parents split up, which I was rejoicing because I was like, it's finally going to get good. It's going to get great. And then it didn't. So when Paris, my little sister, was born, that's around the same time my mom started to get her diagnosis stuff done. And she really just shut down.
Yeah.
Like after being confirmed that it was Huntington, she really shut down. She wasn't able to work. So it was really on me, my older sister, to take care of my younger sister.
Were your parents working like full-time jobs up until this point?
My dad was a taxi driver
Okay.
for a very long time. And then my mom never really worked.
Okay.
She would have like part-time jobs here and there, but
Yeah.
nothing
Consistent.
consistent. And then around this time I was in junior high. So where we lived in a really bad neighborhood in Dartmouth. And my junior high was on the other side of town, like probably a half an hour bus ride away. But Paris would go to school closer to us, and in the mornings I'd have to drop her off. I'd try to run to get my bus, and I'd usually miss my bus because I wasn't
You were dropping her off all by yourself.
all by myself. And I was like 12. Not even 12. I was like 9. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so little me like trying to pack her lunch and like be responsible for her. And then I would try to take care of myself, which was also impossible to
Yeah.
do. And trying to like help my mom through the process as much as I could. But everything that was going on around me made me so bitter.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
angry at everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
Yeah, so like me and my mom constantly butt heads, and it wasn't just like an angsty teenage daughter like butting heads with her mom. It was like fueled by hate, rage, like screaming matches and all of that fun stuff. And then CPS was kind of always in and out of our household, especially when I was a kid, and we were always told to lie because there were so many siblings involved and we loved our grandparents. So that was kind of used against us as like, oh, if you tell them what's really happening in this house and you get taken away, you're never going to see anybody ever again.
Were your grandparents aware of what was going on?
My grandparents were aware.
Yeah.
And they tried their best to like, I don't want to say they tried their best to separate my parents, but they tried for a really long time to separate my mom and my dad because they thought, so sorry.
It's all good.
They thought that my dad was like the main issue.
Yeah.
Because he was a very angry man.
Yeah.
And he did take out a lot on us. But I think once they realized after they separated that it wasn't getting any better, they didn't really know what to do at that point.
Yeah.
Because they were kind of faced with the fact that like, oh, my daughter's actually an issue. Which like is probably so hard to face as parents.
Yeah. Yeah. You are like you're in denial, or you feel like if we do something and she loses her kids, like you almost feel like you're doing that to her instead of it being your mom's actions that have caused the consequences.
Yeah. And like, how do you live with that as grandparents?
Yeah.
And a mother.
Yeah, for sure.
So probably around grade 9, so I would have been 14 years old. My mom kicked my older sister out of the house. So it became just me, Paris, and my mom, which just kept adding to all the anger, the frustration.
She was kind of like a buffer for you guys.
Yeah, she was the buffer. And she was the one, like, I couldn't work because I was 14. So
Yeah.
she would work. And then when she got kicked out, it was like...
So she was your income.
She was the income, and I was, like, the hands, if that makes sense. Like,
oh my gosh.
I was a very hands-on person as a kid.
So she's making the money, but you're, like, doing the cooking.
The cooking, the housework, like making sure Paris has like her lunches and stuff made, and like making sure she gets to where she needs so that Aaliyah could go to work and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not for someone your age to carry.
Oh my gosh. No. And like my mom had sisters, and they were like, I don't want to use the term crazy, but they were very strong women who very like who had their own opinions on what like things should be and how they should be done. And I can remember like they would come into the house, and one time they told me that I had to like manage my mom's finances. I literally don't know how to manage anything with money. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know what you mean by that. Like, I don't know what you want me to do in this situation.
I don't even have money.
I'm like, I don't know how a bank works. Like, I don't understand a debit card.
You cannot manage finances.
I cannot manage.
You can't even get a debit card without a parent's signature.
That's what yeah. So at this point, I'm like, okay, cool. So it very much felt like the family was always, I don't want to say like against us, but it felt like they never stepped in to help.
It sounds like they were protecting their sister or their daughter instead of protecting the vulnerable and the innocent and the child.
Yeah, which was like, I don't know, so backwards. But so having a mom that wasn't there, a dad that wasn't there, my siblings are gone.
Yeah.
And I felt like nobody was helping me. Like, I just became so secluded to any help.
Yeah.
I was like, if nobody's going to help me, I'm going to help myself, and I'll help my sister along the way.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing I can trust in right now, that I can do it.
Yeah.
And then when I was 14, it was my first week of high school, because high school starts in grade 9 in Nova Scotia. And I was in the gym, and I got called down to the principal's office over like the intercom. And I was like, oh crap, I'm going to get suspended. Like, I did something to get myself kicked out of school. Like, I don't know. I was just like, I'm going to the principal's office. Something's bad about to happen.
Someone's framed me.
I'm like, okay, like I'm ready to defend my name. I'm ready to go to war if I need to. And I get down there and I get called into like the back principal's office. So like the way the office was set up is like her office is way down the hall.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And she was like the most terrifying woman to me. And I was like, I'm about to get yelled at by this lady, and I just need to take it. I just need to take it, and I've done something wrong, and I don't know what it is, but I'm sorry. And I get back there, and it's the principal and our 2 vice principals. So I'm like, oh, I'm really in trouble. And some lady that I didn't know. So at this point, I'm like, I don't know why she's here, but I think I know why I'm here. They close the door, and they're all standing there, and it's this dead silence. And this lady's like, hey, like, I'm from CPS. Like, can you just let us know what's going on to your house? Somebody called it in. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you have to lie. Like, you can't say anything because I want to see Paris, and I want to be able to see my siblings and my grandparents still. And I sit there in silence for probably like 5 minutes, refusing to say anything. And then everything just like vomits out.
Like uncontrollably.
Uncontrollable. It was like all this pent up like anger that I had towards everything just came out, and I said everything. And then she was like, okay, this is an emergency case. You're being placed into foster care now. Like, go get your backpack. We need to go to your apartment and grab your stuff while your parents aren't home. And we need to go grab your little sister from school.
Oh my gosh.
I'm literally walking, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like,
and
walking
it's your
down.
first week of high school.
It's my first week of high school. I'm still trying to make friends and prove that I'm not this cringy, like, grade 9. Like, I'm a cool person. And I'm walking through the halls during, like, class change. So everybody's in the hallways. Tears streaming down my face.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
goodness.
I don't know what just happened. I know that I'm being moved, but what was this? So I get back into the gym, grab my stuff, and then I convinced the CPS lady to let me take my best friend with me, and I refused to leave until my older sister was called.
Okay.
So they get us, and then we go to our apartment building. Nobody's home. We have to pack as much as we can for me and Paris.
Yeah.
And then we have to go to Paris's school and get Paris. But at this point, it was dismissal time. And my mom and my grandparents were picking her up that day.
Oh my goodness.
So they bring us back into this classroom, and they kind of like let her know what's going on. Tears are like just streaming down her face. My nan, she's so confused on what's going on. And my grandfather just like is trying to be there for them. And they get to like, okay, like say your last goodbyes for now. Mm-hmm. So she says goodbye to Paris. They all say goodbye to Paris, and they completely ignore me. They don't even like recognize that I'm in the room.
Because do they think this is your fault?
I think at this point they assumed it was my fault.
Okay.
Because I was the oldest person in the situation that they were just like, they were so angry and distraught that they were like, I can't look at you right now type thing. So I'm already like filled with this anger and this hate, and I see this and I'm like, cool. So cool. So fantastic and so great.
Oh my gosh.
So then Paris and I get placed into a home together.
Yeah.
And they love Paris. Like, they're obsessed with Paris.
Aww.
For a teenager in foster care,
yeah,
it's a different story.
Yeah.
Like, you never feel like you belong in a house because you're older, and if they haven't taken a teenager before and they don't have a teenager already, they don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
They're
do
like,
they trust you?
Do they trust?
Not?
Like, there's that, like, they're trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to figure it out. I literally just shut down for like 2 months. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't even really talk to Paris.
But was Paris just like living her best life?
Paris was living like, she was still kind of like emotionally confused on what was going on because she was so attached to my mom. Like, my mom with her was very much like distant when it came to responsibility, but loved having that aspect of like, oh, I have like a kid.
Yeah.
Like, this is my kid.
Yeah.
So it was just always a weird thing. And I honestly blame a lot of that on the Huntingtons.
Yeah.
Where it's like she couldn't really understand what she was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
In a sense. So we're in this house, and one night me and the parents get into like this big fight because I'm like, I don't know what you want from me, and I don't know what anybody wants from me. And they're like, why does anybody need anything from you?
Oh.
So we're just going at it, and it's just like another thing where it's like, I'm so angry and I can't trust these people. I feel like I can't trust anybody right now besides me.
Yeah.
And then I think probably a week later after that, my social worker came and picked me up from that house and was driving me home from school. And she's like, okay, like, I need to talk to you. You guys are being moved. And I was like, perfect. Me and Paris are being moved. And she's like, no, you're being moved to a house and Paris is being moved to a different house.
What?
I went berserk. Like, I've actually never gone so crazy before because I was like, the one thing you promised me was that we would stay together.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was adding like another tally of somebody I couldn't trust.
Do you know why?
It was because there was no house that they could find, like a permanent foster home that wanted to take two people at such drastic ages. Because she was...
Yeah,
she
people
was
pick
like,
their age brackets, right, when they foster.
Because she was like 7 or 8 and I was 14.
So you were just in like a temporary...
Yeah, that was like our temporary home until they could find something permanent for us. So I'm trying to fight it, but there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So I'm literally like so distraught, and they're like, okay, do you want to be moved tonight or tomorrow morning? I was like, just move me tonight. Like, just rip the Band-Aid off in this moment, because if it's tomorrow morning, I'm not going to be able to like make it through this night.
That's so sad.
So that night I went with them to see Paris's house so I could like get a visual of where she was. And then I was getting dropped off at my house. And I wasn't really told much about the family besides like they had other kids in the house, that they were great. Whatever.
Yeah.
I met them, super sweet, and I think they had 3 boys at the time, and it was just the mom. And she was very welcoming, very sweet. She was like, okay, like, do you want to go to school tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, I want to go to school tomorrow, because I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't know who you are, lady.
Why do I want to sit in this house with you?
I don't know who you are. But over time, this family, like, I really started to enjoy them. Like, loved them, loved the kids in the house.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the husband yet because the husband worked offshore.
Okay.
So I was like, I didn't even know she really had a husband until he came home.
Yeah.
And he was like, my first interaction with him, so funny. He is a very shy and awkward guy. And my room was in the basement and everybody else was upstairs.
Yeah.
And I ran up to get my backpack to go to school. And we kind of just make eye contact. And all he says is like, hi, I'm taking you to school. And I'm like, who are you? Who are you? And
This middle-aged man.
And we drive, and he doesn't say anything to me in the car. Like, not like a
This is such a dad typical stereotypical situation.
Yeah, he was just silent. So I'm like, who are you? Like, who are you? Over time, like, really started to enjoy my time with this family.
Yeah.
Loved them. Like, I did everything with them. I wanted to be with them. Like, I was still learning how to trust.
Yeah.
But my heart became more open because they had this unique sense of love.
Wow.
Like, you could feel the love when
Yeah.
you walked into the house. And it was probably, I think I was with them for probably maybe 8 or 9 months. And we were driving back from their parents' house, so grandparents' house. And the car was just silent. And I would kind of just reached a point where I was like, if you're not going to fight for me, I need to fight for myself.
Yeah.
So I was probably 15 at this point, and I was just like, okay, are you going to adopt me? Because I can't take another disappointment was my whole mentality behind it. So I was like, if you're not going to adopt me, I'm taking matters into my own hands and coming up with a plan.
Yeah.
And she was like, Ivy, you're not supposed to ask. I was like, oh crap, this lady's going to say no. And she's like, we're already in the process of it. And I was like, it was one of those ones where I was like, I had to turn and look out the window because I was so excited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
It was amazing. So they told me about me at first, but then Paris was kind of always in the back of my head.
Yeah.
I was like, nobody would do that. Like, this age is so different. Nobody would do that.
Were you still seeing Paris on and off?
I would see her on and off. Paris at this point has been moved around probably I think 2 or 3 times from different houses.
Oh my gosh.
Because she was so emotional.
Yeah.
Like, she is a very emotional little girl.
Yeah.
And nobody would really tell her what was going on.
Yeah.
She just was like, I want my sisters. I want my mom. Like, why am I being moved to another house?
Yeah.
So at this point, we're not too sure what's like happening. And then my mom calls me in for a conversation. Is like, okay, we need to talk. And I'm like, cool. You're not adopting me. And she's like, no, actually, we're adopting Paris too. And I was like, yes!
Oh my gosh.
So then she moved in with us in the summer. It was so good, so great. And then after I was adopted, they started going to a new church.
Yeah.
So I didn't know they were Christian up until this point, really.
Okay.
Because they're not allowed to talk about it as foster parents unless I ask them about it.
Yeah.
And I just never asked.
Yeah.
So I don't really want to go with them to church. I'm like, that's your thing, not my thing. Like, let me live my life.
Yeah. Did you have any like feelings of anger towards God, or you just never thought about him?
It wasn't even, I don't know if it was anger, because even before I was a Christian and still in like the house that I was in, I knew who he was and I knew I could pray to him.
Yeah.
And I would constantly be like, God, what are we doing
Yeah.
here? Like, I don't trust you. I'm not a follower of you, but I
Yeah.
know you do great things.
Yeah.
So I know you're going to do something great. And I still think I was so just hurt because I was like, I just got these people. I'm still learning how to trust these people. How am I going to go to a church and trust this God that's done all of these things? If he's such a good God, why has he put me through these things?
Yeah.
And I kind of got to a point where my mom just kept asking and kept asking, and I was just kept saying no. And then one day she was like, I'm not asking anymore. You're going because it's important to me.
Aww.
And I was like, you know what? You just signed papers. You took a big chance on me. I'll take a chance on this.
Wow.
So I sat in the very back of the church with my hood up and my AirPods in, just dead staring at this pastor while he was speaking. Like,
were your AirPods playing music?
oh, my AirPods 100% were playing music, and it was probably so loud too.
I always wonder that. I'm like, are the AirPods there to deter me from speaking to you, or are they genuinely playing music and you literally can't hear me? I think sometimes it could go either way.
Sometimes I feel like at the beginning it was always like loud music, but then the music would turn down. And then I would lean in a little bit more, but I always kept them in because I didn't want anyone to know I was loosening my toughness, because I'm this tough little 16-year-old who can do it myself. So I started going to the church, wasn't loving it, wasn't hating it.
Yeah.
And then my mom was like, okay, you should go to youth. I was like, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible.
You're asking too much of me.
I was like, you want me to be around these people? Are you kidding me? I thought this was a Sunday thing. So I start going to the youth group. I slowly start to warm up to the group because they're so much younger than me that I was like, I don't need you guys. I don't need these 14-year-olds. And then I started serving in the kids' room at the church, which brought me like a lot of joy and stuff like that. And then over this year, my heart, it softened.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what was happening. Like, looking back on it now, I'm like, I'm such a different person. But in the moment, I was like, I'm just Ivy. And I'm always going to be just Ivy. So it was the 1-year anniversary of the church, because the church was so new when we started going.
Yeah.
And my youth leader was like, hey, Ivy, like, I saved you a spot up front. And I was already so scared because I've never sat up front. And I was like, I'm not an up front gal. Like, that's not for me.
I'm a back row, head up, music in.
Yes, please. And she's like, no, like, I saved you a spot. Like, I really think you should come sit in it. And I'm like, okay. We go through worship. We go through the message. And then the pastor's wrapping up. And he's going into one of those prayers where it's like, if you want to give your life to Christ, like, with every eye closed and every head bowed, like, just go for it. And me being the not Christian that I am, I'm looking around just like, who's raising their hand? And then I look and I'm raising my hand. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck?
I just betrayed myself.
There was literally like, it kind of was like a full circle thing, bringing me back to that dead moment silence of like, I'm not going to say anything, but I said it to the CPS lady.
Yeah. To
now my hand being up in the air, giving my life to Christ. So I'm like, I guess we're doing this. Like, let's go. And he wraps up and I'm like, cool, that's it. Like, I am not like, I don't like being the center of attention. Like, I don't like emphasis on me. I'm like, God, this is great. This is so good. Thank you for doing this. The room goes dead silent. And the pastor starts like walking back and forth on the stage. And I was like, what the heck is this guy looking for?
Yeah.
He stops dead in front of me and looks me in my eyes. And he's like, you're Ivy, right? And I was like, who are you? Who are you?
Did you think he was about to call you out for having your eyes open? Just kidding. Could you imagine?
For a second, maybe. But I literally was like, what the heck is this guy going to say to me? And he just starts speaking into me of a way of like how I thought about myself, how I thought about how everything happened. And like the big thing that always stuck out to me was how I always felt like I was faking it. Because that was a big thing. I was always like a fake it till you make it type of person. Where it's like, if I can just get through this, then we will be good. Yeah. And nobody needs to help me because I can do it on my own. Because that's how it always was. Like, I learned that from a kid up into being a teenager. Yeah. So he just starts speaking into me and like, I just freeze. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea who told him these things.
But he was so bang on.
And I was like,
crazy.
It's like, okay. And he was like, you know, God has a life of abundance for you. And like, you know, some pain and it's going to go into something. And I want you to know that. And I'm literally like, it's one of those ones where you're so shocked you can't cry. Yeah. So I'm literally just standing there like, what the heck? And he just goes back to like normal talking. Confetti cannons are going off around me. This one person's hugging me from the church. And I'm like, what just happened? What is going on?
We should say the confetti cannons were for the 1-year anniversary.
The confetti cannons were for the 1-year anniversary.
But you know what? It would be appropriate if they were just because you gave your life to
She gave her life to Christ.
Confetti cannon.
So I'm literally standing here and I'm like, I don't know what just happened. We're going into worship. I'm like, yeah, I thank God. What just happened? And I'm like, I don't know what to say, but okay. If this is how it's going to be, I'm going to trust this.
And did God feel so real and evident to you in that moment?
Yeah, I think it took me a second to get past the shock of everything. Yeah. To be like, oh, God does care about me. Like the things these youth pastors have been saying to me and the youth leaders and my mom, like, it's not just them saying this. There is this God that cares a lot for me.
Yeah.
So then I was like, cool, let's go, God. Like, and that's kind of the moment, like, giving my life to Christ. And then I got baptized a few months later.
Wow.
Applied for Bible college.
Oh my gosh.
I went on a missions trip, then applied for Bible college because I didn't want to go to Bible college.
Yeah.
And then God kind of revealed to me on that trip that, like, no, that, like, you need to go into ministry.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fast pace, like,
yeah.
I'm 17 years old and here we go. Let's go.
But you kind of pushed back on that for a little bit, didn't you?
The Bible college thing? Yeah, I wanted to be a teacher. Like, I wanted to be a drama teacher so bad, but I'm not academically strong. So, like, my mom and I kind of had this moment of, like, let's be realistic here. Like, I don't want to crush your dreams. Yeah. And I'm going to say this to you nicely because I want you to succeed. I don't think that's the thing for you. And I think she was obviously right. Yeah. But I was like...
saying it as a loving mom.
And I was like, what's my plan now? I'm in grade 12, or I guess end of grade 11 at this point. I'm like, I need a plan.
Yeah.
I have things I have to do. So then she's like, oh, like, why don't you go to school to be like Matt and Emily? And I was like, you can go to school to be like Matt and Emily? Like, there's schooling to be a pastor.
Matt and Emily are your friends.
Matt and Emily are my friends. At this point, they were working at the church that I was at. So I was like, yeah, right. Like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, I'm just sitting and talking with Emily, and she's like, Ivy, I really think you got to go to Bible college. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. Like, please. But I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, like, I'll go through the process of, like, getting the letters and stuff that you need to, and I'll have the application kind of together. Yeah. And then I got chosen to go on this Dominican trip with the church. And when you had to, like, fill out this thing to join the team, one of the questions was like, oh, what do you want God to reveal to you on this trip? And I was like, I need to figure out my future. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I can't be a teacher anymore.
I'm not capable.
I'm not capable right now. Whatever you want, God, let's go. So we get to the Dominican, and I hear that one of the missionaries is from Nova Scotia. So I'm like,
so weird.
I'm like, small world. What are you doing in Dominican Republic?
Yeah.
Let me just see where you're from.
Yeah.
And we get to talking, and she's like, oh, I grew up on Gaston. And I was like, no way. I grew up on Gaston. And she's like, yeah, this was my house. She was my neighbor when I was living with my bio family.
That is, like,
such a small world.
So
I'm
crazy.
Like, what are we doing with this God?
And you had, like, you did not recognize her?
No. No.
That is crazy.
Not at all. And then I was like, okay, like, what schools did you go to? Because there's so many schools in the area. I was like, surely there's no correlation. She's like, yeah, I went to this school for elementary, this school for junior high, and I graduated from this high school. I was like, oh, I went to all three of those schools too.
That is so weird.
I could walk the halls of my high school and find her graduation photo. Yeah. And I was like, okay, what did you do afterwards? And she was like, oh, I went to a school in Ontario called Eastern. And I was like, what the heck is Eastern? She's like, oh, it's called Masters now. And I was like, oh, God, I have to go to Bible college. I was like, that's it. I'm going. And I literally, like, remember turning to my mom, and I was like, I have to go. And she's like, yeah, you do.
They were all waiting for you to catch up to the plan that they already knew was, like, in motion.
Yeah, my mom already knew what was happening at this point. So we land in Canada. I sent in my application. It's the only school I applied to. So I'm like, God, if I don't get in here, like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm staying in Nova Scotia for the rest of my life. I don't know what the plan is. Thankfully, I get in. And I'm still in. And I'm almost done now.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years later.
4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that's so exciting because how your life was from one way to, like, now, like, God is just taking you on this crazy,
it's such a 180.
Yeah. Do you feel like there was a lot of time where you were just learning forgiveness, or, like, walk me through all of the...
Yeah, I feel like since I became a Christian so much later in my life, and I didn't know any of, like, the principles coming in, I started off as a very bad Christian. Like, I'm so sorry, God. I represented you so poorly. I was still so angry and so bitter. And then people are like, yeah, but you're a Christian. And I'm like, oh, you're right. What does that mean to be
Yeah.
that now
Yeah.
that I guess that's me.
Yeah.
So having to learn, like, I don't want to say having to learn everything at such a older age, I feel like was so much harder. Because like I constantly think, like, not constantly, but there was always thoughts of like, oh, imagine if I just like grew up in a Christian house as a kid.
Yeah.
And like I had stable parents as a kid, like how different my life would be.
Yeah.
But then getting in those thoughts, I'm like, that's not the plan that God had for me.
Yeah.
And that's so evident now as an adult.
Yeah. I was just listening to this sermon actually from Francis Chan, and he grew up in a very abusive home. And he said, like, the Bible says to, like, give thanks to God in all things. And he said, I can say that, like, thank you, God, for my parents. Thank you for my childhood. And you can tell that that's, like, a genuine thing for him. Like, thank you so much. And I think that's why he, like, you know, he can reach a whole different audience because of the experiences that the Lord gave him as a child. And not that that was the Lord's desire. He doesn't desire for us to, like, be in an abusive home or to suffer, but we can still give thanks in those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's so good. Because even, like, for me on my own forgiveness journey with my parents, it was really hard. Because I was like, I don't have to forgive them.
Yeah.
Like, they did something so terrible to me. Like, they don't deserve my forgiveness. And I feel like it wasn't until, like, probably my second year at Bible college where I was like, this is hurting my heart to not forgive these people.
Yeah.
Even as hard as it is. Like, how many times should God not forgive me? Like, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
So how are these people any different from me just because they've done me wrong?
Yeah.
Was kind of the whole mindset. So it definitely became a lot easier over time as I grew as a Christian to be like.
But I think the Lord understands that it's a process.
Oh, 100%.
Because he's God, obviously, and we are human.
Yeah.
And he's given us emotions and feelings and a memory to, like, remember the things that have happened to us. And I think he understands that forgiveness is a process. And I also think sometimes that forgiveness is like a daily thing. Like, you know what? I woke up yesterday and I said, I forgive my dad or whoever it is. And you know what? Today I need to remind myself that, like, I have forgiven them. And it's like a constant journey that we're going on, which is really tough.
Yeah. And even, like, just thinking of how, like, intentional and divine his timing is insane. Because if I would have waited even a couple, like a year longer to not forgive, like, especially my bio mom in the process, she would have passed away before I even got the chance to, like,
so you were saying
taking that off. So she passed away from Huntington's disease when I was in my third year at Bible college.
Okay.
And up until this point, like, we didn't really have a relationship. I would go talk to her when Paris wanted to go, or like if it was a holiday. My adoptive mom really pushed me to still continue to try with my bio mom, because I was, as soon as I entered care with her, I was like, I'm never seeing them again, I'm so done. She's like, it's an open case, so yeah, you are. I was like, oh, okay. So she was really helpful through that whole process. And then like the timing of her passing and me actually, like, letting go in my heart that of the things that you've done to me was so, like, it was just so divine. Like, there's, like, the timing of it was impeccable.
Wow, that is so kind of God that he, like, gives us those moments. And like, how are you with your biological dad?
I haven't seen him since I was 14 years old.
Okay.
The open adoption case didn't really include my dad's side of the family. Because he was so disconnected from it for so long. Like, even from the time that they separated when I was 8, he never came back.
Wow.
Like, he never showed up. And, like,
you don't know where he is, like, that type of thing.
He moved to Newfoundland and started a whole new life out there and then moved back. So it was like, I had grown, he had grown, and I didn't really want a relationship with him. So I was like, this is fine.
And that's the thing too, forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation.
Exactly. That's something I really had to learn, because that was like the thing that was stopping me from forgiving, is because I didn't want to reconcile. Which, like, maybe I need to get off my high horse a little bit, but I wasn't ready for that. So even with my bio mom, I was still always felt like, God, I'm not ready. God, I'm not ready. And he's like, are you just going to keep pushing this off, or are you going to trust me that when you forgive this person, I'm going to be here through the process? And I was like, oh, that makes it so much easier.
And, like, you're in a different place. Like sometimes you feel like too, if I forgive, then I'll be like in jeopardy again. I will
Yeah.
be like vulnerable to be hurt again. But God had you in a different place, had
Yeah.
you in a safe place with people who loved and cared about you and were going to emotionally and physically protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's always God's timing.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who is a younger version of you?
Oh my gosh, so many things. Get off your high horse. Like, stop being so angsty. Just allow yourself to feel what you've gone through.
Yeah.
But trust that God has something better. Like, he always has something better.
Yeah.
Even like when I felt like I was at my end. I was like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm done. I'm walking away from everything.
Yeah.
I'm running away and like living in the woods somewhere because I can't deal with this. God was still there through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a song that kind of reminds me of by Benjamin William Hastings, but it says like through the highlands and the valleys, like that he is always there. Anyways, it's a very good song. But
that sounds good.
you had said something earlier and it made me think of something. But when you were first in that house, like that first house that you got placed in, that temporary house, like you guys were fighting and it kind of came to a point where it's like, I don't know what you want from me. And they're like, I don't know why you think anybody like, why no one wants anything from you or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that like kind of what you said? I feel like that just reminds me of like our relationship with God.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're kind of like, what do you want from me? And he's like, I just want you. Yeah. Like we sometimes feel like it's like this performance based like relationship, but yeah, it just really reminded me. And I think that was such a sweet picture of like, one day you will learn that like, yeah, you grew up your whole life people needing and wanting things from you and you having to perform and to fake it and to make it. But the Lord is just like, I just want you.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, like
it's
that.
Just so good to think, oh, that's good.
That you don't have to perform. You don't have to. And if you're listening today and you don't know God, or maybe you do and you're struggling with this, like you don't have to perform. You don't have to. What does he want from you? He literally just wants to be in relationship with you. And when you can unlearn that it's not about task or like what you're producing, that he just wants you because he simply just loves you for who you are and not because of anything you've done. That is such like a beautiful place to be in and to learn that. So
yeah,
I just think that's like a cool glimpse into that. So what do you, I guess we'll carry on. What do you hope for, or like what are you expectant for your future as you're like now wrapping up Bible college?
Oh my gosh.
You were obedient to the Lord. You signed up, you went, you finished.
Yeah. I'm
not everyone
done.
Finishes.
I feel like every year there was a point where I was like, I'm dropping out. I'm so done. I'm not called. And then God was like, I don't want to say he was like, are you dumb? But I was like, I'm called. I'm sorry, God.
And maybe we'll touch on that. What do you feel like for maybe someone who's listening? What does it mean to be like called? Like, what does that feel like? How do you know?
Oh my gosh. For me, I really relied on that confirmation part of like, I needed my mom to say it. I needed somebody from the outside to say it. And I need a complete stranger to tell me that they've
/ your neighbor
/ my neighbor to tell me like that this is what I have to do, because I was so like, you can't use me. You don't want me for ministry. You know my story, God. So why put me into this? I'm not perfect. I don't have the perfect situation. I've never had the perfect situation. So I don't think I'm right for your ministry. But then he kind of intercedes in that and says, who gets the final say? Yeah. Like, who gets the final call here?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, if that's what you want for me, like, I'll trust that. And it's just continually leaning on him and trusting in his word and his plan is going to succeed through you.
Yeah. So what do you see then for this next year, this next couple of years? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you're just I'm just waiting to see what God has for me.
I'm kind of just waiting. I'm in like my waiting season of like, I'm wrapping up. Am I going to move back home? Am I going to stay here? Is God going to take me somewhere else? Is where I kind of feel like I'm at right now. But I always try to just go in not having a plan.
Yeah.
Like, I usually have some type of like base plan.
Yeah.
But like, I don't try to put all the pieces together because I don't want to disappoint myself when that doesn't happen. Yeah. So I'm really just leaning on God and saying, Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Wherever you want me to go, I will go.
Well, I'm excited for your future.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
excited to see where the Lord takes you. I wanted to tell you my first memory of you, actually. And this is, you're probably thinking, like, I don't even know if you know I was there, but I saw you at summer camp. We were doing a talent show. And is it ringing a bell?
Is it
okay?
have to do with Justin Bieber?
It has to do with Justin
Oh
Bieber. Okay,
my
so
gosh.
we're doing a talent show. We're at summer camp. The talent show is fizzling.
It was so bad.
It was fizzling. Okay, the talent was strong.
The talent was limited.
Yeah, and but you know, everyone gave it their best effort. It was really fun, and we were on an emotional decline. Okay, and you get up there. And you put on Justin Bieber. Was it Baby?
It was Baby by Justin Bieber.
Okay, and you brought, genuinely, I'm not even just saying this, you brought the life back to the party.
It was so bad.
And I just think that is, I don't know, that is what the Lord has for you. It's like so clear and evident that you were for ministry and you were like, I'm bringing the party. And I know it was like a lighthearted moment and I'm making it serious, but like, you were made for this and God has called you
so
and that is evident. And if you're going to go into youth ministry, whatever it is, that is the attitude we need. Okay. We need people that are like, I'm bringing the life back to this. Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like youth students, they're always watching their leaders.
Yeah.
They will only go as far as their leaders.
Yeah.
So I will always take it to 100%
Yes.
if that means somebody else is going to take it to 100% with me.
And guys, she was at 100.
If you go to my Instagram, you can find the video.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? When I follow you after this, then
It's one of my highlights. And the thing that was so funny was Emily was sitting behind me and she's like, Ivy, go do it. And I was like,
yes.
Like, no, they don't need me to do this. She's like,
we needed you to do it.
She's like, go. And I was like, okay, this is my task. I will do it. And we did it.
I was a judge at that talent show, and I think I was channeling a little bit too much Simon Cowell.
Okay, but some of the talents, I was like, what is this? How is somebody supposed to judge you shaking your hair?
I think what I've learned is that with the rise of phones, we don't know what our talent is. So then people get up there and they're like, what do I do?
They're like, oh no.
They had the bravery to get up there, and I will give them kudos to that because when I was at summer camp, Never did I ever. Actually, that's not true.
Oh.
I did one talent show. I did it with Emily's sister, Katie.
Yeah.
And I will tell you our talent, okay? We brushed our teeth.
Okay.
I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
I spit in a cup. I passed it to Katie. She brushed her teeth. She spit in the cup. She passed it on. They brushed their teeth. They spit in the cup. He passed it on. Last person drank it.
Oh my goodness.
And that now would be so against the everything.
Somebody would be like, where's the COVID restrictions? Yeah, somebody's gonna get sick.
And I'm sitting here judging people for their talent. Clearly, my talent was a lack of talent.
Okay, but like that, there's commitment in that.
I was the first person brushing my teeth.
Okay.
The commitment comes at the end.
You're just a trend starter.
Right. And what's funny now is Katie won't even share her drink with me, but like lo and behold, she brushed her teeth and spit in the same cup. But anyways, that was my talent. That was that. And yours is Justin Bieber. And I just feel like the Lord might use yours more than he uses mine.
I hope the Lord can use me rapping Ludacris.
Yeah, it was a great moment.
Any point.
It was a great moment. It's living in my head rent free. That is for sure.
Oh my gosh. That's
well, anyways, thank you so much for coming to share your testimony, your story,
no
and
problem.
like being vulnerable. And I hope if you are still listening to us, and maybe you are in a similar situation to Ivy, that you know that you're not in that situation because of you or anything that you've done, and to seek help.
Yeah.
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 So the Lord sees what we're going through. And I know that can be tough to hear because it's like, well, he sees me, but why am I still in this situation?
Yeah.
And I think it's complicated because there's humans involved and humans have free will and all of those things. But just know that the Lord sees you, and I know his plans for your future are great and big. So thank you for sticking around to the end of our podcast, and thank you so much, Ivy.
Oh my gosh, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I've got to go follow her on Instagram. So see you guys.
See ya.
do this very often. Young lady, is it Ivy? I wouldn't embarrass you for anything, but I just want to encourage you today. You just put your hand up. You've known some desert, relationally. You know some pain. You know neglect. You know having more need than abundance. You know what it's like not to have a lot. But God is moving you into a place of more. God's presence wants to let you know you're more than enough. He loves you just as you were. Sometimes you think if they knew the way I thought, sometimes you even feel like you're faking it. And God wants you to know He loves you just as you are, but He loves you too much to leave you there. He's surrounding you with amazing people that are cheering you on and taking you from where you were to where you're called to be. Can we pray together today? Can we pray?